version is I had a friend who was doing pretty good on TikTok. He saw Zed Run on there from somebody. I think he said it was an ad. He sent it to me and said, "Hey, this is crazy enough to be right up your alley." And I didn't even make it halfway through the 30-second video. I started looking it up and watching YouTube, and I was hooked.
Were you into crypto and like Ethereum before you bought a horse?
So my first experience with crypto was just a few weeks probably before I got into Zed. Whenever Dogecoin was at like 7 cents before it took off, that's when I got into crypto, and I was buying Doge on Robinhood, so I had no idea about most of it. I ignored it for a long time.
So was Doge like your first crypto?
Yeah, yeah. I just kind of bought it at 7, sold at 14, bought back at like 18 or 20, sold again in the mid 20s, bought back in at the low 30s, and then sold at 72, I think, before Saturday Night Live.
That's a nice little flips right there.
Yeah, I wish I would have started with more than $50, but hey, it got me started.
So when you got into Zed Run, did you view it as investment or entertainment?
Investment,
What?
definitely.
How did you look at that? Did you look at it as in Genesis horses or bred horses? What was your thought process going into it as an investment?
So originally I was waiting around for the Terra drop. Wasn't able to get a horse. Tried the Echo drop. Wasn't going to get a horse. Got the you want $1 million drop horse. Didn't get that horse. So from there, I was just kind of planning out like where were prices at the time and what do I think was going to be hard to obtain in the future. So my first horse was a Z11 legendary Uterine filly. She had Nakamoto blood in her, daughter to Whisper Proof, which was a Z2. And I figured I wasn't going to be able to afford a Nakamoto, so I can might as well start with a female that I can breed that has Nakamoto blood in it already as a base.
And so how did that horse do? Has that horse won a race?
No, she's won. Let's see here. She's ran about 60 races. She's never placed first, never placed last. Um, Before she hit class two, she was right around a 30% show rate, I believe. She was ROI positive until the end of class three. And she just got her first 10th place, and it broke my heart the other day. I was trying to get her up to class one without going below ninth, but she got her first below ninth place. So it was rough.
Do you plan on ever selling that horse or holding on to it?
There's no point in selling it. A Unable to race legendary Buterin, no matter what blood in it. It's hard to move, and I got it for such a good deal. I feel, and she's been a pretty decent breeder. There's no point.
Okay, so what did that first horse teach you about the game, and then what was your next horse after that one?
So right after I bought that horse, I actually bought a second horse, Bajorn to run, and I pretty much used the same criteria, except for I didn't do mixed blood. I stuck with pure Buterin that time. Pretty much, I was just looking for both parents who had running history that had over 10% win rates. Because, this was back in April when I first started researching horses. And I think I picked up my first one right after $1 million drop, whenever that was. But both of them couldn't win. I ran over 150 races between the two of them with no wins. And those two horses alone didn't teach me a lot. Um, Besides that, just because you have 14 odds, it doesn't mean that you're that much closer to winning. It seemed like the same horses were winning all the time, or the same types of horses were winning all the time. Um, Odds were really hard, I believe, unless you had a very strong horse to decide what distance to run at. Um, so I'm still a big fan of Flames compared to odds as far as discovery goes, just because my one horse is 10 odds across the board. He was in the nines before I put him in class one just to see what would happen. And he can win in every distance and he can come in 12th at every distance. So if you see a horse that had, 9.5 odds, you think, oh, I need to run here. And that wasn't necessarily the case.
So what did you think the difference between odds and flames were? Did you think like just very strong U shape, like has a strong chance of getting first if it has low odds, but also can get last, versus flames to where if you get flames, you just know like this is a strong base ability horse? How did you compare the two?
Yeah, so all my horses are high variance horses. None of them have really strong distance preference. None of them are super strong at base ability either. So for me, like all my horses didn't seem to win when they had the best odds. They were always when they had, third or fourth best odds. So I just kind of played the matchups and paid attention to, what horses I could win against and which ones I was losing against, no matter what the odds were. Once I finally got some winning horses. And I didn't even learn about spook theory until after odds went away. So that didn't really help me any. I just realized my purebred Buterin, when I put her in a race with a whole bunch of Finnies, her odds would go way up and she wouldn't do well. She'd place like sixth, and that's unfavorable. So I just avoid Finnies with purebred Buterins is what I was doing in the beginning, and it helped a little bit. And then once I got Flames, and Flames kind of came out the right same time that MJ started refining his tool. So I was able to see, you know, it seemed like I was winning most at like 1,200 meters. But because of Flames and MJ's tool, I was actually faster at 1,000 meters because I'd flame more at 1,000 than I would at 1,200. So it kind of helped me tweak my approach and pick races more favorably.
Yeah, I would agree with that because I had a horse that would pull like really low odds at 2,200, but he's always like his flame is 50%, so it's like literally U shape, win or lose. But when you go to 1,600 meters, it's like a 90% flame, and you can just see like,
Yep.
oh, I can see like his base ability is just very strong. So flames are just like I didn't think I would like him at first, but they've kind of grown on me. How would you feel about him?
I I didn't like them when they originally announced them. I liked them when they first came out, and I liked them up until the point I started using stack Nax. Um, just because the horses that I thought were doing that were strong based on flames, when you could actually read the speed data against other horses, uh, it just wasn't. They weren't as strong as what they looked originally, and I think that was the case really once they updated fatigue the last time, right before the tournaments, and the horses were able to run more. Then once they announced tournaments, like I think I lost 5% win rate across all my horses except for two, and it's just because I think what was a 16% winner in Class One a month ago is really like a 10% winner today. And that's really what most of my horses were horses that had 10 average odds but 16 to 20% win rates. And then once the competition kind of leveled out and caught up, and everybody was able to read what they should run against and what they shouldn't, um, those win rates just started dropping.
Yeah, the fields got super tough. When you ran for the tournament, did you run free or paid races?
I ran free races for the horse that I was seriously trying to qualify. Um, and then the other, I still had horses I was still trying to play around with. I bought a couple Genesis right before the tournament, and I never ran them, but the one was heavily raced, almost 300 races. So I kind of wanted to see what I could figure out with the horse, not just based off the data, but actually putting it in the matchups it's never been in before. So that one saw a couple of races that were paid and a couple that were free.
Okay. And so you were actually the first one to get on the tournament board. Can you tell us the story of that?
Yeah, so I knew I only had two horses, maybe three, that if I was lucky I'd be able to qualify. So and even if they did qualify, like I didn't expect them to make it past qualifiers. So I figured, here's a moment in history that's going to be, solidified forever. How can I participate that in a way to kind of, immortalize myself? Because that's the one big thing I've been really big on with the NFTs. Don't wait for the project creator to create the utility when you own the commercial rights. Like if you own the commercial rights to to what you own, why are you waiting for somebody else to airdrop you something to have utility? Like go make your own utility with the damn thing. So essentially, that's what I did. Camille, who's been a donkey breeder, I bred her with her half brother to make Don't Run for Money because the horse was going to run in only free races and I was going to run its freaking hose off. And I think it was 14 hours into the tournament, I hit 30 races in one distance funnel. And then I was the first one on the leaderboard. So I figured I'd be first for a day, even if I couldn't be there at the end.
Yeah, you made it up there, man. So you kind of touched on the tournament. What would you like to see with this second tournament? What would you like to see different from this first one?
Really, for me, I think quarterfinals shouldn't be one race. I would like to see the quarterfinals at least, and maybe the semifinals, instead of doing like the middle distance that kind of put the extreme distance preference horses at a disadvantage. Do the first and last races in the funnel, so the 1,000, the 1,400, the 16 and 2,000, and 2,200 and 2,600. Just because I think you'd see a lot broader spectrum of horses that would win. If they would have ran different races, I think a lot of the monster horses that we were expecting to see get through would have still got through if they would have got 2 races.
Yeah, it was.
Especially at different distances.
Did you feel like 30 races was good along with the 2 week qualification?
I did. I know for most people it was rough, but like for myself, like I was going on a trip and I had 2 days prior to the turn, to the launch, went on a trip and then came back. So I think especially for the first one, it had to be that long. So that way everybody had an opportunity. And I feel like that was what this was really geared for, was everybody would get a shot to get there. Even if they made it past qualifiers, they probably didn't have a shot to win it just because of the pedigree that was there. I would also like to see, they kind of alluded to, they want to create a class system or some sort of racing structure that allows for horses with sub 5% or 0% win rates. I think doing something along those lines, whether it's limiting the horses by how many races they have, enter their own category. But, same tournament structure, but find a way to include more like, weaker horses into a different tournament that kind of mirrors what's going on.
Just kind of like skill based, right? Like put
Yeah.
de-skilled horses against horses of the same skill.
Yeah, like it was cool that everybody got to participate, but somebody buying a UU Buter and Legendary for their very first horse, trying to qualify for the same tournament as Princess of Power in the future, I don't think that's going to be a lot of fun for most people. I think for this tournament, the way that they kind of marketed it being what are the best horses in Zed Run, a lot of people feel like they got cheated because the best horses didn't make it past the quarterfinals or the qualifier, or I think it was still probably the first way to go about it for the first one, because we all had a learning curve. And then for a lot of people, they had to decide, do you want to maintain profitability for this 2-week window, or do you want to participate in the first ever tournament? So you had to be, as a stable owner, really selective on, which path did you want to take for those 2 weeks.
Yeah, you really did. And if it's rough, right? Because if your horse can make money and then you're spending that 2 weeks racing free races and you don't qualify, it's like, man, you just missed out on 2 weeks of pay.
2 weeks at how long? If you're going to be here in 10 years, what that 2 weeks actually cost you to be a part of something this epic. Like,
good point.
To me, that's real small-minded and short-sighted. And I get it. Like, some people need this money to continue to grow their stable, which is cool. But for me, it's a no-brainer.
Right.
Like, be part of history.
100%. Yeah. It's just, for me, it's like, oh man, my bankroll's small right now. I'm trying to grow it up, especially if like I've lost like 0.1 in the past few days or something like that. So imagine like going 0.1 and then the tournament hits. It's like, nah, man, I need to get my money back a little bit. But that is a good point.
And this is also come from a guy who doesn't have that strong horses either. Like, my horse that qualified is a negative 40% ROI horse, but that's because I've used the hell out of him to kind of learn the game.
Okay, so when you go about buying a new horse, what is your process? Do you go on Haku and just look for new listings, or are you scouting raced horses, or are you buying UUUs? What's your process there?
So originally my process was buy females that have successful parents that also seem to throw decent offspring. Was my first, criteria once I kind of started to get going, and find the value, like the area in the market that isn't being appreciated most. So, my very first horse, I thought that was the legendary Buterin Nakamoto mix, which, I think I paid $600, 0.2 at the time. It was like $630. So, it seemed like a pretty good deal for Nakamoto blood, especially at the Genesis level, to have that in there at the legendary. Then everything else I pretty much bought from that point on has been Genesis. Most 2 of them I bought because they seem to have good speed stats from the way that I was measuring it back then. And both had some racing history. So I figured worst case scenario, if people are trying to buy a horse and they're comparing both sets of parents, my both parents had 10% win rates at the time or more. Just psychologically, it'd be hard to pick a horse that didn't have that, especially if you weren't either disciplined or kind of knew how the game was played. So I figured just from a perceived value standpoint, that would be best. And then ever since then, I've been pretty much just scraping things off the floor, waiting for the market to kind of correct.
So would you say you mostly buy like proven horses?
Um, now if I actually just go by volume of purchasing, it's just been how many Genesis can I get for what I currently have and get them as soon as I can.
Okay.
Because, 6 weeks ago, probably about 2 months ago now, like I think beater and floor was close to like 0.7 for females. Males were like 0.4. So a small shift in the market and it's easy to get out what you put in.
Now, why do you think the Genesis market has dipped? Do you think it's because of the breeding minimums, new updates, or just a free market and it's going to dip sometimes?
Well, I think it's a few things. Like the secondary market's dead because everybody can afford to breed their own donkeys. Like with the inflammation of fatigue, with the way that people have been having issues with racing, up until this point, it was really hard to make money. So why buy a lottery ticket outside of your stable that you're probably not going to be able to make money with because they're restricting how much we could race so much with the original fatigue update. When you can just breed it in a house cheaper and make your own lottery ticket. And then we haven't really had that many new users come on board. I don't remember who put out the stat, but I think there was right around 10,000 unique stables that participated in the tournament or raced during the qualifying window. And I know I had 2 stables running in it. So, that number is probably not as high for actually unique players. So when you have too much supply and not enough people, buying horses because they don't have to, there's no need for it. There's no value in it unless it is a proven racer. Market gets stagnant. And I think a lot of people are just getting impatient. They're selling their horses to try the next mint to hopefully get, the next cool cat or whatever is going to pop and, mint something, flip it real quick, mint something, flip it real quick.
So, what do you think they should do to help that supply and demand? How are we going to, do you want to see a DES token or a glue system? What do you want to see to reduce that supply?
I So I don't really know a whole lot about the mechanics of how a DES token would work. But from my understanding now, and a couple of people I've talked about, one of the biggest problems with Axie is the fact that they have the token. Like the token price dictates the market just as much as what's in the market. And I don't necessarily like people who don't have access to the game or who aren't playing the game being able to manipulate our value just by trading. So I'm not so gun ho for a DES token as far as, to compare it to like an SLP or something. I think they need to change breeding minimums. I understand why they did it at first. The fact that people are trying to breed Nakamoto's for $78 is complete ludicrous. That's just being greedy and not respecting what they have really. But it was really nice that anybody could take, if you wanted to spend a month refreshing, trying to get that Nakamoto blood, and you could, snatch it real quick without owning one, that was great. Because if that's a game you want to play, you could play it that way. Some people just want to pre-race, so they can do that. Some people just want to be in $2.50 races, they could do that. So I think the breeding minimums do need to go away, or at least be adjusted. Especially because if Nakamoto's are as good as they're supposed to be and the way they're perceived, there's the difference between Nakamoto and Zaba breeding fee isn't that much at all. And the difference between breeding with a Genesis and breeding with, an exclusive Nakamoto is not that different at all. So it just makes it really inaccessible. And when the market's dead, you got to stimulate it somehow. And when people who own the Nakamotos don't even want to breed in house because they don't see the value in it, like that's a problem.
Would you change the breeding minimums off of Ethereum?
Uh, it does make it challenging. I think they need to decide to do it one way or the other. Either they base it off Ethereum or whether they base it off of, US dollar or whatever they want to do it. I don't think you can have racing in one and then the breeding minimums set by another.
Which one would you like to see?
Once again, that's hard because if you do it based off Ethereum and there's a bad dump overnight, like the value of your entire stable just went to half, quarter. But at the same time, this is a blockchain game. We're trying to be more decentralized. I don't know what it looks like legally when you switch from, being an Ethereum based process to a dollar based process. Even though they're still paying us in Ethereum, like I don't know if that's going to attract, regulation more or not. That side of things, I don't really know that much about. Of why are they doing it that way? But I still think they have a plan. I think up until this point, they haven't been able to move forward with anything that they wanted to do just because of bandwidth and probably the technical know-how within house. So I'm willing to be patient. I'm here for the long haul as long as the game exists. So
Yeah. Yeah, me as well. So how do you feel about their current partnerships? They just announced yesterday that they're doing a partnership with the Harder They Fall Netflix movie, and then
yeah,
last week or a week before that it was with the Melbourne Cup. So how do you feel about them just continuing to get these new partnerships?
I think it should show you how far out this team has been thinking. Because that Netflix partnership didn't happen when the Fatigue update came out. That has been something they've been working on for an extended period of time. And everyone keeps on trying to talk about like D-Race. Well, D-Race could be a great game, but Stella Artois is going to partner with both Zed Run and D-Race. The largest racing organization in the world isn't going to partner with Zed Run and D-Race. And the fact that they're going out and locking in the future of the game with these big companies and introducing them into the blockchain world, it just shows me, I've been saying it all along, they're not even playing the same game as everybody else. They are building something that nobody else can even fathom because it has never existed. And we just have to be patient enough to get there. Like crypto moves super fast, but building a giant organization is still slow.
Yeah, especially building a game in front of the players as they're playing it.
Yeah.
So where do you see Zed Run 2 years from now?
2 years from now, that's a tough one. Um,
It's like
yeah,
6 years in crypto time.
like crypto's, you live crypto in dog years, I feel like. 2 years from now, I don't know. I think in order for the game to thrive, we have to get to some sort of horse renting system, because I don't think you should have to own a horse to play the game. I think that's the biggest barrier to entry for anybody, especially somebody who just wants to check it out. Because like, how many times have you bought a video game, played through it for a couple hours, and then benched it because the next Madden came out, or whatever you're into, or you ran through it once and because the game was over, you just set it down. Like, not everyone's going to want to build a stable. Not everyone's going to want to race every single day for a month. Some people are just going to, like when I get on people's streams and they're throwing horses in races, it's like, man, my horse isn't going to win this race, but I want to be part of it. So I throw my horse in to be a part of the community and, donate to their charity bank. But in 2 years, I hope we have something that can include more people in that way. I definitely think we're going to see mare breeding, to where you'll be able to put your mares in stud. I know the website's glitched a few times where it will give me the option to do it, but then when I try to complete the transaction, it like refreshes and goes away. And a lot of the other games, they do that. So I think that'd be nice to see. I think we're probably going to see weekly events. It's just hard to tell. Like, there's so many things going on. Really, in 2 years, I wouldn't be surprised if it's full AR, VR. You put on your headset, you feel like you're the jockey. There's people in the stadium watching. I would really hope that they would partner with some of these different games and programs that are building out unique planets and stuff, and have a Zed Racing Day in a completely different game. Set up a quick racetrack there, almost like a traveling racing circuit or something. Visit all the different metaverses and visit all the different game hubs and stuff. And that'd be really cool for me.
Yeah, that would be really cool. Um, so you're into some other projects. I believe we're both into the Crypto Cannabis Club. So
Yep.
why are you into the Crypto Cannabis Club? And a lot of people don't know that that also is a blockchain game. So do you want to touch on that a little bit?
Yeah. So for me, there was a couple of guys on Twitter that I follow that were very community based. You know, they were always reaching out to people. They're always, check up on people. So when they said, hey, there's this crypto cannabis thing, I'm going to be joining the Discord server. You should, everybody else should check it out. Just off their reputation, like they were a good person that I've never met in real life, but they seem pretty, sincere online. So I kind of followed them in, and that was the first Discord server that I've been in that was very, family. It felt like a family. It wasn't so much, what's the floor at, what are the traits going to be. Like it was about everybody that was there first, then like, oh yeah, they're going to be launching a project second. Um, so that drew me in. And then when I listened to the first AMA and they were talking about doing a global partnership with growers and dispensaries to where you'd be able to present your NFT and get discounts, I'm like, well, that's just from a pure investment standpoint. If you can give somebody lifetime 5% off on their on their weed, like what better investment can you look for? Um, so that was a no-brainer for me. And then I kind of stuck around because the community was just so good. Um, you go in there. I was trying to show one of my friends. They're like, well, what's the whole point? And I jumped on to the Crypto Cannabis Discord at like 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, typed in GM, and then 17 messages within the next 3 minutes. You know what I mean? Everybody just, hey, good morning, good morning, good morning. Hey, it's night here, but morning for you. Um, so it's I just stuck around for the people. As far as the game goes, they've been talking about a lot of different stuff now,
Mm-hmm.
but the big one that I do know of and that I do have assets in is the plant breeding and growing, where you'll be able to, in some fashion, breed your plants together to grow custom strands. And they were talking about too, I think, the first contest, whoever grew the best in-game weed essentially was going to be able to partner with a dispensary, and they would actually help you build out that strand to sell, um, which was, I'm not a regular smoker or anything, but it's still, that'd be really cool if that's, if you're in that community and that's something that you're really into.
Yeah, you have your own trademark strand. And so
Yeah.
for anybody that doesn't know, the male plants in this game are just like
Super scarce.
colts. Yeah, they're just like colts. So you can go and place your male into a breeding barn, and someone with a female can come up and pay a fee to make a new strain of weed. So it's pretty
And
interesting.
yeah, especially because there's only 3,000 males and there's, was it 8,000 females, I believe. So those males are going to be pretty busy.
Do you have any?
Yeah, I was able to get a male off the drop.
Oh, you
So I
got it
was
off the
pretty happy with
airdrop?
that. Yeah.
That's nice. How much
Yeah.
tokers did you have before?
Two. Yeah, I minted two. I minted number 26 and 27. I sold my number 26 to upgrade into a sub 3,000 rarity. Just because I know when everybody else finally catches on, they're going to be looking at rarity, which is the craziest thing about that community. Like that community is one of the strangest I've been a part of, because the floor doesn't move, because everybody buys out of the middle because they buy what they want. Like I'm probably, in the last 4 months I've been in that Discord server, count on one hand how many times somebody brought up, rarity scores. They just don't care. They care about what they like. And that's in a world where everyone's trying to, flip to get to the next bag. It's refreshing.
It's super refreshing because they're realistic. So people want to get one that actually looks like them or represents them. They don't care about like the floor one that doesn't
Yep.
look like them. They want one that actually looks like them.
Or something that's cool for them. Like they really like the robot, or they really like the alien, or they like this one because it looks like Willie Nelson, or they want a Ricky Williams jersey because they really like Ricky Williams. So it's kind of cool to see them really just resonate with what what they like and go for it.
Yeah, and I think Cannabis Club totally knocked it out of the park with having all those cultural pieces. They'll have the Ricky Williams. They got the Sha'Carri Richardson headband. Just anybody that's involved with weed. They got the Willie Nelson. It's cool that they've brought all those people into a project.
Yep.
Okay. So going back into Zed Run a little bit, do you
Yep.
ever want to see our horses get tired or age at all?
I don't think so. It just doesn't make sense. Because if you were to do that, that means to me the only purpose would be either to forcefully retire the horse or to degrade the horse. And you promise the community that you never make more Genesis than the original ones you promised. So that means at some point Genesis would become fully obsolete. And at that point, why even bother?
I agree.
You know?
I agree because
What?
we always talk about in sport, like we wanna see Michael Jordan versus LeBron James, right? So the Michael Jordan of today is, let's say, Princess of Power, but there's gonna be some LeBron James horse that comes along, and someone's gonna want to see that one-on-one matchup. And if we're killing horses, we're never gonna be able to see that matchup.
Yeah, and that's going to be the cool thing too. Like, I don't think people realize at scale what this looks like. There's going to be a time when there's going to be so many horses on the track. If the game survives, like if it grows to its full potential, like I don't think we're going to stay stagnant much longer. Where you won't even see legendary horses and Griffies anymore, just because it's going to be so rare.
Wow.
So like, you know what I mean? Like I think I did like rough math, and if every single Genesis mare was in the ecosystem tomorrow and bred every single month the legendary offspring, it'd be something like 240,000 roughly legendary horses bred a year. And like if we get to a 250,000 person user base, which really isn't that far fetched when you think about how big gaming is, how much play to earn will be, like that means there's not even going to be enough legendary bred horses for every single person to buy one unraced, unbred horse.
Yeah, it'll, especially
Like,
with like the Z2s, correct?
yeah, like Z2s, that's going to be ridiculously scarce, especially because I don't see them, at least in the short term, allowing to continue to breed 3-1. Like I think they might throttle back on how many times the males can breed, at least until the game grows enough to justify that type of breeding.
Yeah, someone in the chat just said pacer and cross game. What do you think about that? You think it's going to be mostly pacer and cross game?
Eventually, like I think it really just depends on us, right? Like we control what's bred. So if we breed a bunch of legendaries, then people have legendaries to breed exclusives. If we breed a whole bunch of exclusives, people end up making a whole bunch of elites. Like it's really up to us. And like a lot of things that are happening with the market was because of us. Like Zed Run didn't say breeding's open, breed every single horse every single time. Like it's all self-imposed. And yeah, the breeding minimums suck, but it's only because we created so many damn horses that there's not enough people to buy them. So like as much as Zed needs to make an adjustment, like the users are the ones who did this to us. Zed never did it. And everyone's like, oh, it should be more decentralized. Well, it was. We screwed it up. Like, what now?
So you said that you think they roll us back from 3 studs a month. What do you think they do?
I if they listen to the community about breeding fees and they kind of look at how the game is going to scale, they might at some point in time increase how many times exclusive can breed, maybe pull back how much Genesis can breed. Like they can adjust it as they need to. Maybe that's their control mechanism instead of trying to control pricing. Maybe they control possible breeds to kind of control contract the market when they need to, at least in the short term.
So are you saying like
Because
Genesis horses would get one breed a month, and then as you go down the type, you get more breeds?
potentially, because eventually once we're at scale, like that's the type of decision making that already have to be made. Like if you have 3 studs with your male, are you going to create legendaries that month? Are you creating exclusives that month? Like what are you creating right now? You don't have to make those hard decisions. but at scale you will. So temporarily, I'd like them to see, remove the breeding minimums. And if you still want to contract the market and restrict it in some way, just take away some of our rates. So that way we can still price it the way we want to, but we can't just produce a whole bunch of trash and throw it out there.
How do you feel about the current in-house breeding system, and what would you like to see fixed within that?
I think if they're keeping the 3-to-1, you should get one guaranteed breed in your own stable. And then I think, after that, it should go to public. Like if they ever do fully private breeding, that might be the time that I sell my horses, because the whole point is anybody gets a shot. And as soon as you go to private breeding, it closes the doors to all small stables, all new users. It's just, that's not good for the long-term vision that they originally pitched me.
Yeah, I agree. I think we should all at least get one free in-house breed if it's our horse, and we have them both in stable. I mean, it's like, come on now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you have your NFTs in an LLC. Do you want to touch on the benefits of having your NFTs in an LLC?
Yeah.
Maybe pros and cons.
Yeah. So let's start with cons. The cons is really nobody knows how to do it effectively because it's never been done before. We haven't necessarily had to pay taxes in the United States on your crypto assets because a lot of people weren't using them. They're stored someplace, either in a hardware wallet or something, and you just didn't need it. So now that we're buying, selling, trading all the time, depending on where you're doing that, you're absolutely going to, like, that money's going to be seen. Coinbase reports, crypto.com reports, Binance US reports. So you're going to have to pay taxes on that. So the way I have things structured, and we're attempting to do it, next year I'll have a new CPA because these ones, they just don't want to learn crypto and how this is working, is essentially I run my stable as a single entity. And my stable is also the owner of the majority of my NFTs. And it's all under the HeroCraft brand. And a lot of that has to do with, I intend on using my intellectual property rights for owning the NFTs for future projects, whether that's animated, comic, leasing with somebody else who wants to use them. That's always been kind of my long-term vision for NFTs to begin with. So if I sell somebody the rights to use one of my profile pictures to make shirts or something with for, $100, and they get, it's their licensing deal, that's $100 of income. So I'm gonna have to report that. Now, because it's owned by an LLC, I'm able to deduct expenses against that. And because it's all owned by, like, the same thing as, like, say, my stable, if I sell a horse and I make half an Ethereum on it, I at least get to claim my breeding fees because that was a business expense. My racing losses can count towards business losses going against it. That's a little bit trickier because it's more in the gambling bucket. But the way we're trying to frame it is it's not gambling, it's entertainment. And by producing the race footage, I'm creating media, and then that was the cost of joining the event that the media was created at. So it's a complicated, very clumsy process right now because not a lot of people have touched it. Not a lot of people know what to do with it. But essentially, all the things that we complain about, gas fees, bridge fees, losses, they're all deductible against the gains up to a certain extent.
And so with an LLC, you're only taxed on the capital you have left at the end of the year, right? So as long as you reinvest that back in, then technically you're not taxed on that, correct?
I'm not sure of all the technicalities on how the ins and out of that work. I have a specific tech strategist that I use that he's also probably going to be replaced. And then he helps me organize things, and I just ship it to my CPA, and then they kind of decode the mess that I created and figure out how to file it properly, and then we kind of go from there. really hands-free with it for the last few years, just because I have other LLCs. So I kind of just know how to put it in the right buckets and let them decipher the rest. But it's something I need to definitely get my hands in more and learn the ins and out more, just because it's a complicated process and I want to make sure that everything's going smooth.
Yeah, especially in an emerging ecosystem, right?
Yeah.
How do you
So
feel? How do you feel about them taking free paid races away?
um I think they have a plan. I think we need to be patient. It seems like they wanted to reserve the paid races for the next event. And I think they realize how detrimental it could be to allow a lot of these horses to class back down with paid races. So I think there should be a penalty for, downclassing, even though it's part of the game. It's a very profitable way to run your horse. Um, there should be some sort of drawback to it. It shouldn't just be complete, you know, as easy as it was with all those free races. And it's probably going to be something that's hard to correct, even with an ELO system, unless you just have all the same horses racing each other all the time, and nobody wants that either. So I think that's probably necessary for how they're planning on structuring the next tournament. So it didn't really bother me that much, because like, even for the most part, the free races, after you start classing up, they're just as hard as paid races, for the most part. Once you're in class 3, class 2, like, unless you have a race that's all down classers, there's going to be 2 or 3 monsters in there that just want to smash the win rate. And unless you have, a top 5% horse, you're not going to beat a top 5% horse. So it kind of hurts in the beginning, but like, all my horses right now are in class 3 and class 2 that I normally run, and they're just still climbing, even though, it's in paid races. So, I don't think free racing would have helped that much, besides not cost you as much to start over before the next tournament.
Okay. Do you Are you still racing your horses with the current rejigging of the dollar amounts in each class system?
I'm trying, but like I said, my horses just don't want to downclass. I don't have high distance preference horses. Everything's high variance. So they kind of win when they feel like it, and they kind of lose when they feel like it. So everything that was in class 3 is working its way up to class 2, even though I'm trying not to do that. And everything that's in class 2 is slowly climbing to class 1. So right now I'm racing like 3 or 4 races a day if I can snag me a good one that I know I can either win or drop in.
So you're very meticulous. You're studying your fields and making sure you're not hopping in against beasts.
I have to be like, my class 5 noob slayer, as they call it over in the Sean versus All channel. It went from 17% win rate to she's down to 13% win rate now, I think, over 70 races. So, and I was getting a little bit, less particular with what I was racing against, just because there's horses that I hadn't raced against yet, and I wanted to see what would happen, and just to kind of see how the variance played out. Because you can always look at the data, but no, there's nothing like throwing your horse actually in there and seeing how it plays out, over and over again.
Yeah, especially it makes sense if there's a bunch of new horses on the track. It's like might as well see if I can beat them right.
Yeah, and every now and then, I'll see somebody out racing that's been talking a lot of smack on Twitter and be like, yeah, I'm not going to beat them, but if I do, it won't be forgotten. So let me just throw my horse in there. I chased Trash Donkey around for like a week and let him beat me 9 times. I was like, okay, yeah, you win. I'll come back when I get a better sprinter.
Just leave that one alone. Just leave that one
Yeah,
alone.
like, you're okay, Zed Inside. I'll leave you alone.
So, do you have a set in stone breeding strategy right now, or is you just going with the flow?
No, not really. Like, it's hard because I feel like everyone's trying to say the same thing. You know, I feel like everyone's breeding strategy, the people that are making content around breeding, are almost saying the exact same thing. The problem is they're so wrapped up in trying to prove how it's different than everybody else, they're missing how it's similar. And it's creating a lot of tension. It's creating a lot of people choosing sides. And it seems like a lot of the new players in the community, once they choose a side, they won't leave the side. So then they're missing a lot of information because they're only hearing it explained one way. But when I step back and I look at them, like, Dan Shane believes you stay as close to Genesis with as low Z number as possible. And from what I understand, his blood tool essentially identifies horses that have good breeding records. And when you look at the horses, it's the horses that have the highest base ability traditionally for their Z number and bloodline combination. So it's like, all right, well, this Z9's throwing a good offspring because it has really high base ability for a Z9 Buterin, you know? So it's, and that's exactly what the guys over at XYZ are saying. Peninsula Park, he's pretty much doing the same thing. You know, what's the highest base ability legendary Z11 I can find? And let me buy that and use that as a breeder. I'm still under the impression, though, that each bloodline and breed type are going to be limited to, how much total stat points they can acquire. Just because it doesn't seem like you see a lot of, even Z2 legendaries that have high variance, high distance preference, and then still crush a 1600. So I think that's why Nakamoto is so much harder to breed, because there's less room for those randomized stats to be played in. And I'm not really good at pulling a lot of data and stuff and building the spreadsheets like everybody else. But from the little bit that I've witnessed and the way that I keep my notes, it just seems to continue to play out that way. So I think over time, we're going to see exactly how that works. But, essentially it is looking for horses that are higher base ability, horses that just don't lose no matter what distance preference you put them in. That's, the first thing I look for. Like, do you have 10th through 12th? Okay, I'm just next. And then kind of going from there. I went away from our breeding strategy, though, for the last few sets of breeds, and it didn't go well at all. Or it could have just been, the randomness of the game. But either way, it wasn't very productive.
Do you have a favorite bloodline you like to start within or go look at first?
It really just depends. So I have two horses, Cheeks, which was the first horse, and then Fusion Light. She's my primary Genesis breeder. And with them, I'm a little bit more selective with what I breed with. So I traditionally will step outside of Buterin for them, just to kind of see what's out there at the time. And kind of go from there. Like I kind of see breeding as two things, and I haven't been following my own ideas on it that much, just because I made the mistake of trying to breed as cheap as possible for a short period of time, just to try to sell and flip the horses real quick to, make a little bit of profit where I could. But I feel like legendary horses are going to be the key to being good breeders, just because if base ability truly is the only thing that's passed on and there's no other type of genetic algorithm, being able to take a Buterin horse and smash Nakamoto base ability into it is going to create essentially a Buterin that has more base ability than the Genesis Buterins. So then that legendary Buterin, in theory, would be a better breeder than any other Genesis Buterin horse, besides the fact that if you breed with it, it becomes an exclusive. And like thoroughbred racehorses have been bred thoroughly. Bloodlines is the combination of two horses. So I don't think like true breeding anything happens in Zed Run at the legendary level. I think that's just a starting block. And I think, that's why when we finally get further down the road and, the ecosystem grows, I'm still under the impression that exclusives and maybe elites will be the best racers, because you'll be able to do the unique combinations between breeding everything. But, if you're just looking for something good to breed with as like a starter horse, like I look for what was bred above that horse's bloodline. So is it a Finny that has a Zabo parent? Is a Buterin that has, even a Finny parents should be better than two Buterins, right? And kind of go from there. It's also based on what I want to pay. Right now, I don't really feel like paying for Nakamoto blood unless I can work with a stable and get a deal, just because it's so expensive.
So you kind of touched on, you said when you go for the legendary, you look at the parents. Are you looking to see if that legendary horse itself is good, or do you not care if it's good or not? Are you just looking what came in to make that legendary horse?
It's hard to say, right? So it's kind of a couple different games you're playing. Like if you're just going pure perceived value, having the parents that are either the most prestigious or the parents that have the highest win rates just visually is going to look better. So if you're selling UU, unless you're selling to people who are really sophisticated in sourcing their horses, they're probably not buying UU anyways, right? So to make your horse the most attractive, you need to have the highest stat parents. And because especially like if you go to Haku, you know, what are your options? You click on the horse, you see how it's performed. If you're shopping for unraced, it hasn't performed yet. The next tab is family. So if you're looking at family, how good are the parents statistically? And even if you know there's no guarantee, if you're picking two horses and one horse is a whole bunch of unbred parents or unraced parents, and the other horse has parents that have won, psychologically, you're not going to be able to turn away. So from that aspect, you know, breeding with higher performing parents, whether they're good breeders or not, is going to give you a better perceived value. Just like when Darkside Supercoats was talking on ZNN, you know, if all my horses that I breed are rare coats, whether they have a higher probability of being better racers, it doesn't matter because they're more scarce, they're more rare. So that's kind of how I approach that. When it comes to horses that are breeding for pure racing potential, then it's kind of, you know, low as Z, how close to, you know, Nakamoto blood can I get, whether it's through a combination or not. And then I start looking for, you know, what I feel are easy indicators of higher base ability, you know, highest performance, closest to 1600, not coming in 12th place at the same race distances that you're coming in, you know, second and first, and just kind of going from there.
Okay, you kind of touched on super coats. Do you have any super horses, and what do you want to see as the utility of those super coats within the game?
I don't have any, just because I never prioritized it. I didn't think the premium was something that was worth what I was trying to do. But at least visually, they have to look different. Like, come on, like I'm sure it's not that simple to, you know, code and edit. Like as far as graphics go, and you compare it to other NFT projects, like Zed Run's pretty intensive, and it already bogs down my computer depending on what else I'm trying to multitask with. So adding, you know, some special animation to one horse, let alone potentially 12 horses in a race, I'm sure it's not that simple. But visually, they got to be different. I don't know. I always thought maybe that super coats would, besides the you know, the special edition race skins, like maybe super coats are the only ones that convert for skins, or at least specific skins. You know what I mean? It would make sense that they would kind of limit it that way. It would be really restricting, but I bet you everybody would be breeding super coats real quick.
Value would skyrocket on all of them
Yeah.
too, huh?
Yeah, even if you just did like a limited number only available for super coats, you know, not every skin launch, but every couple, then it would be super exclusive.
Cool. Do you got anything for me, man? You got anything else?
Um, what's kind of your plans for your stable? What direction are you heading in?
Um, Personally, I'm just looking to breed out Diamond's blood and just keep control as much of it as I can and keep it in stable to where if I do get a good horse down the line, I'll be able to keep it in stable. But right now, just really racing Diamonds and trying to make another good horse.
How do you how do you manage diamonds? Because I've kind of watched diamonds since I saw your first video and you kind of talk about, and I know at one point you were down to like 3% ROI because you kept on entering really high dollar value races. I'm like, man, what's he doing? Like he's really trying to win that big race and make a Charlie Chevelle video. So I noticed the ROI is a lot better.
Yeah.
Like, how do you think about managing a horse in class one like that? Because I don't have any strong class one racers.
Well, I'm not the best manager, if you'd ask, because the way I would look at it, like I know at a lot of other distances I'm not profitable in class one, but I know I can win if I get a high variance roll against anyone. So I'm like, all right,
Yeah.
I'll go race against Y2K2K or Charlie Chevelle or whoever. As long as I get a good variance roll, I should beat him.
Yeah.
I raced against Y2K2K like 3 times. I lost $1,500 real quick. And then I'm like, I'm not going back there. I guess it's just hard with like a U shape in class one because it's like card counting, I guess. If you get a bunch of
Yeah.
12s, you know you have ones on the way. If you get a bunch of ones, you know you got a bunch of 12s on the way.
Yeah. That's what I was going into the tournament. My horse won, I think, it won 4 out of its last 6 races to qualify. I'm like, oh man, I'm doomed. Like, there's no way I'm like 1800 is not even a good distance for me, but there's no way I'm getting a variance roll off that. So Yeah, I was curious. I still don't have any class one racers, so I'm always curious how the other side of the spectrum does it.
It's not too fun up here right now. Yeah,
No.
$10 buy-in minimums, and I mean, if you can win, it's nice, but still, with a U shape, it's 50-50. So
Yeah.
I've got to. It's hard because I can fuck up my bankroll like that in a day, and my account can go to zero. But it can also, like, if I get 3 wins in a row, it can be amazing. But most of the time, I get those wins in like $5 buy-ins instead of $50 buy-ins.
Now, are you putting more money into Zed, or are you just trying to build a stable out with what you have?
When my racing, like when I run out of money to race, I'll throw more money in. But I'll try and just use like my breeding money, the money I make from diamonds. I'll normally charge like 0.35 or point 0.3, but he's only been getting like 1 or 2 hits a month, so I'm just kind of like holding back and waiting for a little bit of a revamp in the system.
I gotcha.
It's it's hard, bro. I wish I had like a distance preference horse, because when I first came into the game, I bought diamonds and I almost bought Sluzz Bucket, but I didn't like the name. I was like, that
Yeah.
horse is not going to be able to qualify for a tournament. Sure as shit, the next week it's in the digital derby. I'm like, fuck.
Right.
So
Yeah, I'm actually gonna start name sniping here shortly. I'm trying to get me a Nakamoto Genesis just because they're so cheap right now. And then once that's over, I'm probably gonna start name hoarding.
yeah, I mean, if you
Just
get a
because
Z1 and you sit on it and you can just breed every month, like that's passive income right there, bro.
I'll probably get a Z2. They're a little bit cheaper.
Z2 Ledge
So
or Z2 Genesis?
Z2 Genesis.
How much
I'm
cheaper are they
I've
than the Z1?
I think I saw Z2 Genesis Stallions going for like 3, 4. So, and I think Z1s were like 11. So a little bit cheaper. Because I had all kinds of different plans on what I was going to be doing, but then Genesis start dropping and dropping and dropping. I'm like, well, if I can grab a Zabo or a Nakamoto, like I'll just halt everything. So I haven't really breeding as much as I want to or anything, just because I'm trying to get up there.
Save up the capital to get that Jenny.
Yeah. What other projects are you in?
I'm into, let's see, I'm into Riot Racers. I really like. I got like 3 Genesis cars, and on that you can own racetrack land. So I got like some
Mm-hmm.
rookie racetrack land on Riot Racers. I'm also in Crypto Cannabis Club, and I think that's it.
Okay.
How about yourself?
Um, so Zed Run's my primary. I bought 2 chickens just because, if they take off, I'll have 2 Genesis chickens. If it doesn't, then it didn't cost me a lot. I'll still be able to use, if I'm allowed to use the commercial rights on them, I'll still be able to use them for the brand. Because it's chicken, horses, they're all on a farm. Like it's easy. And Crypto Cannabis Club, everybody from Crypto Cannabis pretty much moved into Farmers Market Verse. So I'm in there because I'm also into sustainable farming and stuff. It's kind of something I work on projects locally. And then Influence. I've been talking about Influence for a while. I think it's probably the only game that could be bigger than Zed Run in 10 years.
What is influence?
So Influence is a space. It's a game based in space. It's essentially Eve Online, but a new version of it. So if you think of kind of like a World of Warcraft with spaceships, and Eve Online was pretty much bigger than World of Warcraft for almost its entire existence. Just nobody ever heard about it because it wasn't huge in the United States. There's a few people that have heard about it, but the game's huge. Like everything's, I don't even know how to describe it. Everything's player manufactured. Like in Eve Online, when there's a big fight going on, like it's 1,000 people against 1,000 people, and like I know the alliance that I played with primarily, like we were paying a guy $150,000 a year just to be a fleet commander and manage the fights, because how many people are capable of managing 1,000 ships on a field
Wow.
and give commands to sub commanders and have them, direct this unit of 15 and that unit of 15. And it got tense. And like in Eve, when you blew up, you didn't respawn, like your ship was gone. So there's real life consequences for stupidity or being in the wrong place at the wrong time or not being able to fly your ship properly. And a lot of the really good players from there started building out this game. um, and they're pretty much trying to take everything that was wrong with Eve and filter it out and bring the best of everything that came. Everyone's like the developer team there is next level. You know, I'd put them up there with the VHS Studio guys, or maybe even a cut above, just because they're experts in what they're trying to build, and the animation and stuff's secondary. But as far as the game itself, it's more what they're into. So
Is that more like an open world game or a racing game or like?
more open world. Yeah, you pretty much you can own asteroids, and then you'll be able to mine the resources. They're trying to get the resources actually put on some of the uh, like swaps. So some of the decks, so that way you can exchange your iron ore for Ethereum or whatever you want to do, or just exchange it for other resources. So if they can pull off half of what they're talking about, it's going to be interesting. And they've already had huge groups come in and buy really big asteroids for 75 ETH. And so like there's just as much money floating around in there being bought up in private deals as we see in Zed Run. Just they're not trying to advertise because they're not trying to blow up before the game's playable. So we're hoping for the first version of a playable game here in the next like 3 months.
So you can buy an asteroid and you can buy a ship.
Yeah, so pretty much what will happen is everybody will start off with just starter shuttles, and you'll be able to fly to your asteroid, and then you'll have to build a base camp to mine the resources off of it. And then from there, everybody will have to pretty much build every single piece of the ship out. The metal plating, the rockets, the thrusters. You'll need to be able to mine your own fuel, and otherwise, your ship will run out of fuel mid flight, and you gotta wait for somebody to blow your ass up.
Oh man, that actually sounds like a lot of fun. I'm gonna have to check that out. But Mike, thank you
Yeah.
so much, man. Where can people find your content at, bro?
I'm HeroCraft on everything. So YouTube, I'm on Twitter. That's where I'm most active because I have too many Discord servers that I just don't have time to participate in as much as I'd like to. So the best place to find me is either on Twitter or on YouTube.
Cool, man. Thank you so much for the great conversation.
All right, man. I appreciate it.
Yep. Have a good day, bro.
You too. Yeah, thanks. You too.